And I feel like I should be talking to the three new people as well. So anyways, so we as residents of Lindon City on the 725 North Block request a rezoning of the land situated behind the 725 North Block on the border of Lindon and Pleasant Grove. This land is currently zoned to be a road behind the back of our property to be named 1000 South. We as Lindon residents have only ever heard about this road from the PG City Council. Last week, they invited us to a meeting about rezoning some cross streets located on the PG side, which was quickly approved, even though at least 10 Lindon City residents expressed concerns during their Q&A session. To me, this looked like a rubber stamp approval, especially since I was sitting in the room during the working session held just prior to the official meeting, and someone with the last name of Fugel, I don't know if it was the mayor or someone else, called in on the conference line during this working session and said, that road must go through and don't allow this to become a political issue, which begs the question, were they even listening to concerns from the community? Upon researching land records, we note that the majority of the land designated to become a road is actually owned by Lindon City, not Pleasant Grove, and a private resident, Angela Kelson. And it is actually situated in both tax jurisdictions, Lindon and Pleasant Grove, not just Pleasant Grove. In the past, when I've asked Lindon City, and I've asked various people here about the road plans, they've always just said, well, it's in the 50-year plan, and didn't offer any further explanation. But last week at the PG City Council meeting, when the new inlet road rezone was so quickly approved, we realized that these city plans can be rezoned to meet the current needs of the community. We as Lindon City residents respectfully request that a rezoning of this land is immediately considered and that a formal process for such is commenced. This new 1000 South Road offers no benefit to the City of Lindon and detrimentally affects its residents. It will increase the through traffic of PG residents driving through Lindon as a bypass to get to Pleasant Grove, adding additional wear and tear on our already devastated roads. I'm not sure if any of you have driven on 725 North recently, but it is a roller coaster ride full of bumps, potholes, and it has been in desperate need of repair for over a decade, along with many other Lindon roads. Our city simply cannot afford additional wear and tear on our roads from cross-through traffic. This new 1000 South Road is going to sandwich the entire 725 North block of homes with busy streets in both our front and our backyards. This is not a normal way for residential neighborhoods to be situated. Residential blocks normally share a fence line with homes in the back so that only one side of their homes, the front yard, has a street on it. And looking at an aerial map of Lindon, I didn't see any other residential blocks with streets on both sides in a single row of homes. Having a busy road in both our front and backyards will be noisy with additional light pollution, and it will deteriorate the living conditions and the safety of our neighborhood. To my knowledge, there has not been an environmental impact study performed by either city. We urge you, the City of Lindon City Council, to put forth a new proposal to rezone this land for single-family residential homes instead of a road. It is large enough that if combined with the private adjacent PG properties, it could be subdivided into very nice large cul-de-sacs with beautiful homes and, most importantly, with backyards that share a fence line with its neighbors on 725 North, increasing property values and maintaining the feel and safety of Lindon's a little bit of country community. While this new street could potentially benefit Pleasant Grove, it does not benefit us as Lindon residents. Last week, the PG City Council informed us that they have been working closely with Lindon City on this project for several months, and that Lindon City has been fully cooperative. As residents of Lindon, this is extremely concerning to us. We expect our Lindon City Council to represent the best interests of its Lindon residents, not the PG City officials. We expect you to push back on the City of PG and to research what it would take to rezone this land into single-family residential plots. Because PG doesn't actually own any of this land, but Lindon owns half of it, we know that Lindon has more influence in this decision than has been communicated to us. We expect full transparency and clear communication to Lindon residents, and we expect our elected city representatives to put up a fight for us in this matter. It is a shame that to this point, all of the information we have learned from the city of Pleasant Grove as they rush to approve this road into their master plan so that they will qualify for the next round of grant funding. And they will turn our backyards into a major thoroughfare with noise, traffic, and light pollution, and into a neighborhood that is no longer safe to send our kids out to play at the park just up the street. We expect and deserve more from the public officials elected to represent our best interests. We expect each of you to speak up for the needs of its Lindon residents instead of conceding to the best interests of Pleasant Grove City. Thank you.
Thank you, Eve. All right. I know that staff did reach out to offer to meet with residents and give kind of more comprehensive information about the topic, and hopefully that's something that can still come together. But thank you. For anyone else have something that they wanted to address at this time that is not on the agenda?
Council members, my name is Matt Stokes. Thank you for the opportunity. Eve does a great job of representing us on the 725 block, and I don't mean to, be redundant on the issue. As a father of 5, I just wanted to read a short. She gave a very comprehensive view, but I care deeply about the issue and wanted at least to be on the record as my fellow people in the neighborhood about this issue. So I'd like to read a short statement. My name is Matt Stokes, and I live on 725 North in Lindon. My backyard butts right up to the border of PG and is adjacent to the recently proposed street of 1000 South by the city of Pleasant Grove, and I have serious concerns about the project. If completed, all the houses on the north side of 725 will be completely sandwiched between 2 very high-traffic streets, which is extremely problematic for all the Lindon residents on the north side of that street. If completed, PG stated at their latest council meeting that they see that street as a continuation of PG Boulevard or 800 North, which is already very highly traffic laden, and we would experience at least double the traffic, noise, lights, and not to mention more sirens up and down that street, and if not substantially increase those issues. There are no speed bumps, as Eve mentioned, on our street, so traffic comes down 725 already, and it's already a pretty beat up street. A lot of them try to avoid 600 North that does have speed bumps, and so to be sandwiched in between 2 streets where there's a lot of traffic and people don't obey the speed limits factor when people choose homes. Given all these reasons, safety, well-being, quality of life between the noise and the lights, and also financial, I would implore the city of Lindon to please help your Lindon residents on 725 North Block to keep their neighborhood safe and less trafficked area. Thank you for your time and for listening to your concerned citizens. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Stokes. And I do want to make note that we do have on the roads plan for next year, your street is going to be, have some maintenance. So just FYI, it's coming.
Are you pulling up that section of the road?
If I,
Yeah,
If-
pull it up.
maybe if there's any other comments, Mayor, and then I can
Yeah,
review,
any
kind
further
of give
comments
an
that are,
update.
so if, as long as it's new new information, not repeating redundant information, we just, for sake of time, if you, okay, thank you.
I'm Eve's husband, and as you can tell, she probably wears the pants in the family.
State your first and last name for
Sean
the
Warner.
recorder. Thank you,
So
Sean.
I sent the email to you, and first of all, I just want to say thank you. Just talking to my friends and law enforcement, public safety people in Lindon, you guys do an amazing job of taking care of them. So first of all, thank you for that. I know the Lindon Police and Lindon Fire are very appreciative. They're very well taken care of. I work in Salt Lake City, which is in the headlines all the time. It's crazy. The last few years have been even crazier. There are many times that I want to leave the last few years, but why I stay is for places like Lindon. if I or my brothers and sisters don't contain the criminal culture that's up there, it will eventually bleed down here. Because I've seen it before in my native state of California. I saw similar things happen there. And so I know that I have to stay there in order to keep communities like this safe. Again, I just implore you to do your part to keep the motto that you guys have, a little bit of the country, and that's by taking care of the Lindon residents, even though we're a small sliver of the residents, right? We're just 10 houses, but taking care of the least of these, the fewest of these, it's transcends everything. You know, that's the way I would hope you would govern, keep us informed. I'm not sure what can be done at this point, but again, that's all I gotta say. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Werner. All right, any further comment on this topic or any other topic that is not on tonight's agenda? All right, so I'll let staff go ahead and provide some aerials of this area to familiarize the
Yeah,
council with
just to
what's
give you a
being-
few updates, and as the residents are here, we did approve just last month, the city council approved a budget for reconstruction of 725 North between Main and Locust, so that's this red line here. That is scheduled for a complete rebuild, so it would be pulverized and then repaved with 3 inches of new asphalt. And so that would be sometime in the 2024 year, spring, summer, or fall. Is that fair? And so just an FYI that is on our radar and scheduled to be done soon. In regards to the master plan roadway, this is the county parcel layer map. And if you can see this pink line and then yellow is the Pleasant Grove side. And so the area that's been mentioned is technically within the city of Pleasant Grove. So our city boundary is their backyard property line. So in the yellow is in Pleasant Grove. The pink line, if that shows up there, is the Lindon city limits. And so things that would be requests to rezone properties would actually be within Pleasant Grove's jurisdiction. And so technically we could certainly have conversations with Pleasant Grove, which we have over the years, about this roadway. It was probably 5 years ago when this section of 1000 South was put in and several homes were built here. I believe there's 7 or 8 houses that access off this section. And then a little further back, probably 12 years or so ago, we purchased some right-of-way here, and the roadway is planned to turn and head south along the foothills. And this roadway has actually been on the city's master plan since 1968. It's been something that has developed just a piece at a time as properties have developed and been subdivided. And what was presented to Pleasant Grove was a change in how some of these properties would be platted and developed. Mike actually.
And point of clarification, Lindon City can own part of the future roadway, but it doesn't mean it's in our jurisdiction.
Correct. So this piece right here, so this corner home is the Alphon's home, and that when this section of about 8 or 10 homes was platted, I'll actually pull that up here. So this was the plat for your neighborhood, and that was platted in 1994. And so that section of the roadway on 800 North or PG 1000 South was dedicated to the city, and then a little section of Main Street. And so Main Street currently dead ends there and would connect at some point into that roadway. There's a note on the plat that says, this is a little bit hard to read, says there should be no vehicular access to the future 800 North Street from lots 1 through 10. And so the intent was that these were backyards and not accessible to that future collector roadway when the subdivision was developed in 1994.
Would you say that part again?
So on the plat, when this was approved in 1994, the intent, there was a note on the plat that there wouldn't be any access points onto that future road from the backyards. And so the intent would be not to have driveways coming out of this, the backyard areas onto the new street. And so it'd be driveways would stay on the 725, but not be permitted on that roadway in the future. So let me find here really quick that vicinity plan, Mike. Maybe you could explain a little bit about this, Mike.
So,
The other mic is over there.
and Adam, could you please explain for all of us here in the room, because, you know, there's a lot of people who might be curious, this, when roads may be master planned, but cities don't put in roads until a private property owner needs to build a home or a business, and that has to have access.
Most of the time. So
most of the time.
90% of the time, that's true. And so as properties develop, as people sell off their land and subdivisions come in and it's subdivided, that's when the streets are built. And so
And the
most of
developers
those
often put
roadways.
them in. And
Correct.
occasionally, the cities put them in different situations, but most of the time, it's when development triggers it.
Most of the time,
Okay.
yeah. So on the far west of this same roadway is 700 North that goes from State all the way out to the interchange. So the city actually built that portion and paid for that to be done. And then on the far east end, when this will eventually be built and curve along the foothills, most of that would be a city-initiated project. And so, but this in-between section would be initiated primarily by development of adjacent properties.
So what I understand from the PG meetings is that some of these private property owners in this area, just like to the far left, there was a Lindon property owner that developed the first few 4 or 5 lots of that.
Right, so
And
this was
they
this was
collaborated
developed.
with PG City, so someone on the other side that private property owner could have a few homes going up. And now further into the interior, there's someone in PG who is wanting to subdivide the property into some single-family homes.
At
Is that what
some
we
point,
understand?
yes. So what, go ahead,
Maybe
Mike.
go to
So
the
they need
2014
access.
plan first.
20, where is that at? Pull up a chair here and I'll look.
Yeah, it just says PG 2014.
All of their houses face into the road, and they have backyards that face other backyards.
And I think we understand that issue. It is not unprecedented. Just across the street here on Main Street, we have a few lots where they have streets on the front and the back. And all of these along the north will also have that. We have a lot out in this newer subdivision here where there's streets on both sides of these lots, all along Anderson Boulevard and several of these other subdivisions. So it's not unprecedented to have that. Mike, do you want to explain what the maps that we received from Pleasant Grove?
Yeah, so last Monday, we met with Pleasant Grove City, and their current, or they had, in 2014, they put this plan together. It was 3 downhill cul-de-sacs along 900 South, and they made a decision that they wanted to change that. They wanted to change those to through streets, and so they met with us last Monday and presented this newest plan to us. So this one has more connectivity to that 100 or 1000 South. They're not rezoning any properties, they're just changing their vicinity plan is what they called it. And so instead of having 3 downhill cul-de-sacs, they've got 3 connecting roads between those 2 streets. What they talked to us about was one of the property owners, I think it's this one, wants to develop a couple lots. They said for now, he would probably put this road in and put a temporary cul-de-sac in. And that was as far as development as they were aware of that he wanted to do at this point. They weren't going to require that 1000 South be put in, just that east-west road along there. So this wasn't even on our radar that anything was going to happen over there until Pleasant Grove came and met with us last Monday morning.
So at this point, they're approving this road, they're not putting it in yet.
All they did was basically change the street alignment map. So what we would call this would be our street master plan map. So they essentially just called they call it an area plan?
Vicinity plan.
Vicinity plan, to show where the future streets could lay out. And so for us in Lindon, we would call this a street master plan map. And so,
In Pleasant Grove, they have like a 40-page document where they've taken pretty much every vacant piece of property and put a vicinity plan together on how it could be developed. And
So when these landowners decide to develop, the road would eventually go in at the cost to that land developer.
Or is PG looking to put it through as a city initiative?
I don't know the answer to that.
they've tried a couple times to get funding through MAG,
Through
and it's
MAG.
been such a low priority that MAG has not.
It's not anywhere
Funded
near
it.
on the priority
No.
list, I know that for a fact. So, okay, so just question, I know they just approved this vicinity map. It's kind of like the residents are saying, they've kind of rubber stamped it, like this is a done deal.
Well, this is with the one that was approved previously. So as
Right.
far as 1,000 South goes, the 1,000 South has not changed.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
So I'm just curious, with 1,000 South, is, what these residents are suggesting is, could 1,000 South be realigned to be a little bit more north so that it would create some lots backing up to Lindon? You see that the street jogs a little bit, and I guess, I don't know if that's, it would take a lot of
I mean,
tricky
you're
land
connecting
swapping.
on the right side of the map, if you can see my cursor there. So you're connecting from that point over
Right.
to here. And so to have a
It's not
jog
as-
that would swing all the way up and over, that's a pretty significant impact to those property owners. And so, and again, our border with PG is the south side of the future 1,000 South. So the roadway and all of these lots are technically within their jurisdiction.
Right.
I have the parcel IDs, and they are owned by Lindon
So-
City, and Angela Kelson. And Angela Kelson was at the PG meeting. They are just getting plans to do 2 flag lots on their property, and they don't want this road either. It has nothing to do with people wanting to subdivide it.
Lindon City has had as these lots, in fact, your neighborhood, when it was developed, there was a portion of that roadway that I showed on that subdivision map that is right here. And that is owned by Lindon City with the intent to dedicate that as a roadway. It's already
That's what we
dedicated as a
wanted to
roadway.
Consider rezoning. You should not be giving that
We-
that land away to PG for a road behind our
Yeah.
homes, to sandwich our homes between 2 busy streets.
So Lindon City cannot rezone property that's outside of its jurisdiction.
But you don't have to turn it over to PG to make a road out of it.
That's technically something that we've agreed to do with Pleasant Grove through a lot of documents and
But
other
never
years of
notifying the
development.
residents, never hearing our voice,
I
never
would
allowing us to be
strongly
a part of the
disagree with that, ma'am.
conversation.
Yeah,
That's
so,
unfortunate that you didn't know, but this has been planned in sections for decades, and so,
yeah, the road alignment.
Let's replan it.
And well, this is not necessarily a open, if you want to make a comment, then we come to the desk here at this point, but we don't have like the banter back and
Right,
forth
but
with
you
staff.
guys have never actually had an agenda item for us to be able to discuss this, and so this is.
So
the
this is all plannings do general planning and regional planning, these types of alignments, these master planned road alignments, especially for this significant of a connection, you can see they happen in phases, but they're planned many years out in advance, and you can see that staff has provided that the original developer dedicated that land to the city, knowing that that was a future roadway. And it is tricky with the various land ownerships that are involved, and that it's in another city's jurisdiction for them to plan it out, how it lays out. Anyway, we can, at this point, we're not able to take action on this item legislatively in any fashion. We can listen, and then, staff, I'd love to just invite you to sit down with staff or, reach out to council members. But staff can follow up on this, and we can have some further discussions, okay? So appreciate those comments. Are there any other items that anyone would like to address with the council at this point? Okay, seeing none, we'll go on to our item number 4 on the agenda, which is our council reports. All right, I'll start over here with you, Mike.
Well, there's just one thing I need to, I've talked about this with Adam and the mayor individually, but right now, as part of my responsibilities on the council, I've been privileged to serve on the North Point Solid Waste Special Services District Board for 4 years. As I've mentioned to you before, we're doing some really good things, have some really good plans that will benefit everyone. I've also mentioned to you that as of right now, we exist as a special services district. And as such, under state law, we're under the very, very loose jurisdiction of Utah County. At the suggestion and somewhat insistence of Rod Mann, who's the auditor for Utah County. They've done this with the Timpanogos Special Services District. They've done it with the dispatch organization. They have gone to this interlocal agreement, which basically means that Utah County would no longer have the authority to appoint people to serve on the board or to approve people to serve on the board. And what an interlocal agreement does, without going into too much detail, and I'm sure you all know, is it really empowers, in a new way, it empowers those member cities who belong to the district or to the new interlocal agency agreement. As such, I've done some research. Initially, I had talked to the mayor and to Adam about continuing to be the city's representative on that board. There's several reasons why, after a great deal of discussion, that probably is not going to be feasible for a number of reasons. First of all, if we empower, if the new arrangement empowers the cities to have a representative, that typically is an elected official. We talked about the possibility of having some at-large positions, but what that really does, if I'm being candid, all that really does is that just dilutes the member cities' opportunities. I don't know that Lindon would be able to officially appoint me as a at-large, but it gets into all kind of challenges if Lindon's official representative city council member has an idea, and then I, hypothetically, if I have a different idea, and I think we should go a different way, then that sort of defeats the entire purpose of the interlocal agreement. So, having said that, we haven't made that switch yet. We're in the process. We've got a final draft. The attorneys have reviewed. We'll be going around to the different cities doing, for lack of a better term, dog and pony show, just to kind of explain what that means for the member cities when we change to this new form, which means really nothing changes except the cities again have more input. So I guess maybe what I'm asking is, where I'm serving as chair of that board, and have been for a while, possibility of, until we actually, and I don't know what the timeline is, that's what I've got to find out, but it won't be very long into the future if I'm able to continue until we formally, till the agreement is formally approved by all the member cities. And at that point, then I would just, I'd bow out and I'd be gone. Or if the desire is January 1, if the new city council member wants to go and you think it's best if I leave, then that's okay too. So.
Wasn't Gerald Hatch an appointment at large, and wasn't he our sole representative?
That's the way I remember it.
They had a representative that technically lived in Lindon that was the county appointee.
Yeah.
But yes, that was the only one that the city council appointed. That arrangement spoiled is maybe the best way I could say that.
Yeah.
After a little while.
My understanding was that, first of all, his desire or ability to report to the city council and to be accountable to the city council rapidly vanished. That didn't happen as I understand it. And then there was also some issues, I think, with maybe what things he wanted to see happen weren't necessarily in line with what the city
Correct.
wanted to see happen. And in my mind, that would defeat the entire purpose of even being involved as far as the city is concerned.
And also remind me, was there not some time between him being on the city council and then being that large, or was it a
No,
smooth transition?
It was a direct transition.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, but I still think that you've been so heavily involved. I mean, for me, I know I'd be comfortable.
Yeah. Well, it certainly wouldn't be for a long time. I mean, I'm not quite sure. I tried to get hold of our attorney this afternoon. When that actually will take place, we'll make it official. And at that point then, each city would go back and review and see who they want as their representative. Not every city on the board is represented by a council member. Orem has their public works director. Pleasant Grove has a public works person. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a council member, but some of them are. And if that's the city's desire, I've got plenty to keep me busy.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Mike.
So that's, if you would allow me a little bit of time to work that out with you, and unless members of the council have some strong feelings about it one way or the other.
Strong opinion that it should be for, I mean, I have no problem with it at all. I think that'd be great.
All right, thank you.
So the mayor is finalizing the liaison list that we adopt every year, and we'll be presenting that January 2nd. And so that'll list out those assignments and appointments. And so that hasn't been finalized yet. I don't have that on my desk yet. I know she's working on that. And so that would be the date of finalizing or discussing any of those appointments that the mayor would like to recommend and make. So
Great. Well, just being totally intellectually honest about it, it under the proposed format, it makes no sense to have at-large directors. It really doesn't, so.
And do you have a sense of the timeline?
Well, first of the year, that's what we're shooting for.
They're looking to,
Oh, yes,
to
we're looking to
organize
do
that.
it as rapidly as
Okay.
possible. We've met ad nauseum to work it out, and the attorneys have come out smelling sweet on that.
yeah.
But,
All right, well, thank you so much for your service
Yeah, it's been
and
wonderful.
really
Thank you.
diving into all things garbage. It's
Yes,
been amazing.
I'm your guy, I'm the garbage man. So,
All right, anything else in your council report, Mike?
no, you know what, I think this is probably the one time you want to mark in the minutes, probably the only time I don't have anything else to say.
Bold that.
Yeah, please. Wow.
You guys make sure that gets approved in the minutes, okay?
Put it in italics.
I just have a quick update from police. There's a lot of things going on that you would normally expect from our wonderful PD department, vehicle crashes, robberies. But there's a couple of things that stood out that are outside above and beyond the line of duty. A couple of our officers pushed some snow for a 90-year-old neighbor and were thanked by citizens. Cash donations to a single mother and participating in Sub for Santa. I love our department. They just go above and beyond the call of duty and look for ways to be a positive impact, and they have that reputation within our city. So those are what stood out to me in Chief's report this week, and so that's all I have.
All right.
Well, we have Juan here with us today. Is there anything you want to share with Public Works on, in repairs and water line breaks and?
Yeah, we have, you want me to stick to the mic so people can hear?
I know we've been having them.
We are moving forward with our Canal Drive water line replacement. It's going fairly well. We anticipated having about a leak a day, and we've only had about 5 in the past month or so. So the crew's being really careful. We're already all the way from Center Street to about 300 North, and we have hit every cul-de-sac going up from Canal Drive. Today, they should have installed the last fire hydrant that we needed so we can start charging the new system, doing the chlorine cook-up time that is required. And then we'll probably flush by the end of the week. And if the crew is going to work any through between Christmas and New Year's, they'll start running lateral services to there. But we're kind of up in the air, see how burned they are and how the weather is gonna treat us. The weather's been perfect for the type of work that we're doing. But with that, changes in temperatures from the cold to, really cold, and then we get back into the unseasonably warm. We've experienced about 3 or 4 major break lines that are actually due to heaving, where the actual line, instead of having just a hole from corrosion, it actually does a settling and it actually breaks all the way through. And that's unstoppable. It's just gonna do it, and our crews have been very efficient getting people back into water. Adam, with the reverse 911, our Everbridge program, we're able to notify people in the area where the water line breaks are, and also our crews have been going knocking on doors saying that we have. Canal Drive that's the report on the PRA connection. We are done installing the pipe in the road. We're waiting for some of the parts to be manufactured, the vault, so we can actually make the connection. But that's gonna take place mid-January. And then after Christmas, we will start the new replacement of the water line on Main Street and Center Street from the Horse Arena. We're putting a 16-inch line all the way to Center and then making the turn and going all the way to 4th East. And that's also in preparation for the road reconstruction that we're doing later in 2024, beginning of 2025. So be patient with us out there, citizens, and we're doing the best we can to get us a more reliable, safe water system.
Thank you. And I have to pay tribute to them. They do an outstanding job, and they never seem to break in April on a 75-degree day from 10 to 4 in the afternoon.
On
That's
a
not when
Wednesday.
it happens.
It's always on a Friday or Saturday or Sunday.
Easter Sunday.
But that's what we're here for, so.
Yeah.
So again, thank you. Outstanding crews, and well done in directing that department.
Quick, before Juan leaves, he did send information to us on this issue we were talking about earlier with 1000 South. So where that roadway currently ends on the west side, there is a water main that serves the Lindon homes on the south side of the streets. That is master plan to continue along that roadway and connect into this stub at the end of Main, so that we have a continuous flow and there aren't dead-end lines that get stale water in there, so.
Like cul-de-sacs do.
Yeah, so another thing that's been planned with Pleasant Grove and is intended to be put in as far as infrastructure in that roadway, so just an FYI.
Thanks, good information. And then just the last thing, a reminder on the Lindon City webpage, if you have issues, concerns, we're going into kind of the pothole season a little bit, you can make a request on the webpage, and yes. So, and that's a great way to do it. You don't have to call and get hold of a city council member. You can, or get the mayor or whatever. You can go right there, and that's the quickest, most efficient way to do it. Love it. Thank you, that's it.
Okay, I will go next. Just wanted to say that our police department did a wonderful job in being the hosts for our employee Christmas party. It was a fun night, so many kudos and thanks to that. On that note, I don't have anything to report from CERT, but I just wanted to say how much I've enjoyed working with Kelly Johnson over the years. She's a fabulous employee, and she keeps our city and our citizens safe by all the preparation she does with emergency management and the community emergency response teams, the CERT, that she organizes and leads out. As far as youth council, we had a meeting in this room last Monday. The kids are just fabulous. I'm going to miss them a lot. I look forward to getting updates on the city website to see how all the fun things that they have coming in store. I know that they're looking forward to the legislative day in January. It should be fun for the youth. That's something I'm just so excited and thankful to Mayor Lundberg for implementing this program in our city. She knows it's a long time coming from my eyes, and I appreciate her embracing this, not just a little bit, but wholeheartedly. Thank you, Mayor. So as the senior center, just want to report that I will continue on, even unofficially, in the sense that I will have, I'm just going to make a public announcement that on Thursdays at the senior center at 11:15 to 11:45, a shameless plug that we have a cardio drumming class that I will continue to teach free of charge to the public. It's one of my funnest things, highlight, and if you just feel like having a fun time, come and sit in the room there in the auditorium, and we have a fun time. So Thursdays, unless it's holy cow, then you have to come and get a Cinnabon or something fun like that. So there is always fun available, right? And then my last thing, just to report on, our educational grants were completed. We have a budget of $2,000 this year. Well, last year we had a hard time trying to manage that $2,000 and make sure it got spread out as evenly as possible. We only had 11 applicants and we approved 10 of them. So we actually, out of our $2,000 budget, we still have $751.48 left. But we have some good projects. Many of the schools in our community applied for them, and I was grateful to see Oak Canyon even on the list this year, and I will put that to Kate. Her name has just left my brain. Principal, Ross, thank you very much. I can count on a fellow former principal to make sure I got that right. So Principal Ross, I'm sure she's had some prodding on some of the teachers to get that in. But thank you for the opportunity to be able to work with individuals in our community on these assignments. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much. All right.
I'll go ahead and
Daryl.
go. Lindon Days, one of my great privileges to serve on the council was to work with Heath Bateman and his staff. What an incredible group of energetic people. I'm grateful for them, and it's going to be in good hands this next year. They're trying to plug in meaningful experiences for the city and the citizens in conjunction with Centennial celebration next year. They're going to be a busy group, and we look forward to some wonderful things in 2024 for this celebration. The tree advisory board is dormant, like all the trees and bushes currently. We did meet a month ago or so and discussed a few names of potential board members, and that is ongoing. Historical Commission, we have a great group there, and appreciate Mike and Marion for their efforts there and what they're trying to accomplish and do for our city. And I'm very grateful to have served in those capacities, and hope that Steve or Lincoln or Cole have a privilege to be a part of some of that next year. Thank you. That's all I have.
All right, thank you so much, council members. I just want to also give a big thank you to Chief here and his department for the employee Christmas party that they did. It was wonderful. We all had a great time. And also, really quickly, just a couple things that were going on locally. We did get MAG to approve the increase in funding to complete our Heritage Trail down there that was requested, so that's really great news. And hopefully, and we've got the agreements working out with the railroad now, and I don't know if Adam has a quick little update on that. I think we're getting everything signed away, and it'll
Okay, can I
start to
just say,
happen.
interrupt you and say, yay. There's so many, that's been so long in the
So many
waiting.
years.
Thank you for making sure that got done. I know that there's many people out there that are very grateful to you, Mayor.
We're
for
excited. We should do
keeping
like
to-
an inaugural bike ride down it or
Yes.
something.
We should do like a race of some type from
Yeah, mountain to the
Bridalville
lake.
Falls to the lake or something like that.
I remember when they opened the Murdoch Trail, they had some lovely grand openings along that, and I don't know, I think the county gave out, I still have my staff that I received for that ribbon cutting.
And
So it'd be
we'll say
lovely.
for that event, it'll be okay to bring the golf cart. on the
Oh,
trail.
and I sold the golf cart, so
darn it.
I now have a side-by-side. That's
Okay,
legal.
the razor side by side.
So.
You know, I had some youth help clean up that trail as a service project, and learned that it was okay for a car can fit on that trail, you know, when they're collecting trash, so you can bring the razor.
Okay. I can fit on the road, though.
Dedicate it with the razor. And then also Kimber Academy here, private school, local school. They had a really fun night this last week. They invited me to come pop by. They had youth entrepreneurs doing different booths and things there for the kids. A couple other council members in Orem had their farewells, Terry Peterson and Debbie LeRae, this last week. So they're stepping down. And then, let's see. I wanted to share with you, so we have, I don't know if you're familiar with this magazine, Utah Valley Business. We had two companies in Lindon that were the number 2 and number 3 fastest growing companies acknowledged in their UV50. So one of them was Pillow Cube. I don't know if you guys are familiar with these. Both these companies were in the Canopy Buildings area. Pillow Cube has grown so incredibly fast. They had a 10,000 year-over-year growth, 3-year growth period. They just moved to Orem. And I see the Weldons here, and I'm like, I need to figure out when people are leaving Lindon, say, you need to stay in Lindon. Anyway, the third company, Block Chips, so they just moved into a bigger space out there and had an open house. They were the number 3 fastest growing, a really awesome tech company. They process they're like a hub where when you do your credit card processing, they route it to the right banks and whatnot. So they're growing really, really fast. So they were acknowledged as well, the 2 founders. So anyway, just wanted to say how proud we are of our business community and
Great information.
yeah, the great things that are happening here locally in Lindon. And then I'll just turn the time over now to Adam and your administrator report.
Yeah, just a reminder, our 2 January meetings are on Tuesday. And so just a heads up to keep an eye on those because of the holidays in January. So on the 2nd and the 16th. And then the only other thing I wanted to bring up, just you may have heard on the radio or it's been on TV, it's been on some internet ads I've seen. There's a lot of anti-utopia ads going on right now. Greg Hughes is the face of that, and I was brought up in our Utopia board meeting this last week, and there is no basis or reason that we feel as a board that this is coming up at this point in time. There's nothing Utopia is doing differently.
In fact,
this
all the
is-
numbers they're doing tremendous growth.
Yeah, revenues have been as good as ever, better than
They're
ever,
operating
and
very well.
this is funded through a special PAC that has a name that you can't really tie who's funding it.
I've looked,
but
I couldn't find it.
we're assuming it's private competitors that don't want government-funded internet, but
Can you
there's got-
remind the
there's-
public that this is, I remember that it was said to us that think of Utopia as the airport, not the airlines that
Right.
come to this. And so if
It's
peop-
an open
and so it's
infrastructure.
an open infrastructure. So that's why it was confusing to me, why it's not the government controlling the internet, which I would be highly opposed to, but to me, this is the airport, and many different bodies can come and have a
Correct.
plane at the airport if they wish to. Because Lindon, for one of these cooperating cities, we were ignored for a long time prior to Utopia, and when we looked for some sort of connection to the internet other than dial-up, and this was how we solved that problem, and I think it's worked really well. It may have had, we could have maybe checked a few things before we got into to prevent some of the problems, but I can't predict what those would have been at this time, but I think we've handled it pretty well. So that's my speech, my outgoing speech on Utopia.
So just an FYI, that's been surprising, and we can't pin our finger on exactly why that's happening at this moment in time. But other cities have chosen to build their own networks. Lehigh is building their own network now. American Fork is doing that on their own now, fiber optic networks. And so Utopia is not in this on its own. Spanish Fork has its own network. Anyway, just a heads up. That's all I have, Mayor. Thanks.
Thank you very much. All right. Okay, going on to item number 6 here on the agenda, the approval of the minutes from December 4th, 2023. Council, any review or comments on those? I just have one on page 2 of 14 on the minutes. I mentioned the county, I didn't say the county would be hosting an event. They had hosted an event, and that's where I reported on the MLB information. So it was past tense. Very small, minor thing. Thank you, Kathy. Anyone else? All right, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I will make that motion to approve the city council minutes of December 14th, 2023, as noted with the minor correction.
Okay.
Second?
All right, we have a motion by Councilmember Broderick, a second by Councilmember Powell. Any further discussion?
I think you said the 18th, man. I think you meant the 4th.
Okay. All right, thank you. Noted. All right, we'll take it to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, and any opposed? It looks like that was unanimous on the approval of the minutes. Okay, we now have on our consent agenda just one quick item here, and I'll have Adam go ahead and present, or is this Michael? Okay.
Sure. Yeah, Mike.
All right, so our development director, he is the one, as you all know, that interacts and oversees a lot of the planning commission meetings, and we have some planning commissioner appointments that he's going to
Yeah, so
discuss.
we'd like to ask your approval or to reappoint Mike Marchbanks and Rob Callis to the Planning Commission. They've served a number of terms, but they do really well on there. They really understand the council's vision, and we just ask for their reappointments.
I think they bring a lot to the planning commission. Their experience is unmatched.
And I think with their private background that they have on top of their institutional knowledge, it's something that Lindon City is very lucky to have.
A lot of credibility they bring. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda item as presented.
I'll second.
All right, I have a motion by Councilmember Hoyt, a second by Councilmember Magleby. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that is unanimous. And we do thank them for their service very, very much. That is, you know, they were so excited. They give a lot of hours in those meetings and research, and in this current legislation that was just adopted, they'll have even more weighty responsibilities too. So we appreciate having that institutional knowledge there. All right, so let's go on now to item number 8. This is a review and action of the financial audit report for the fiscal year of 2023. And I'd like to invite the representatives from Gilbert and Stewart to come forward, and as well as our finance director, Kristen. All right, take it away.
Okay, so we've completed the audit and financial statements, and we contracted with Gilbert and Stewart, and this is Ron Gilbert. Oh, thank you.
I'm sorry, your name one more time?
I'm Ron Stewart.
Ron Stewart, thank you.
Oh, sorry about
It's
that.
okay. That's just fine. Thank you for allowing me to be here this evening. What I'll do is just take a couple minutes and just explain what we do as auditors and the conclusions that we've come to. So for an audit of a city, there's really 4 things we look at. We want to make sure that the financial statements that you've seen are materially correct and you can rely upon those numbers. We want to make sure that the internal controls within your city have been designed and implemented or working. We want to make sure that you're in compliance with state law based on the procedures and procedures that we went through to look at those. And then if you qualify, we want to make sure that you're in compliance with the uniform guidance in the Single Audit Act. So if you spend more than $750,000 in federal dollars, then there's additional testing and requirements that we go through to make sure that you've complied with those federal grants. So what we've done to come to those conclusions for those 4 areas, we take a look at the trial balance of the city or the books of the city, and then we perform a number of tests on those. We send out confirmations to third parties to make sure that the balances that the city shows match the balances that they have. We pull a significant number of invoices throughout the audit, At the beginning of the audit, we just pull a random sample to make sure that things are, that we can see that there's a good control, that we have a handle on what's happening in the city. As we're going through the audit, we'll pull invoices for capital assets, for just various expenses that we note. And then we'll also pull in a significant number of invoices that happen after the end of the year to make sure that the expenses are recorded in the proper period. So if an expense happened in June, but we didn't pay it until July, we want to make sure that gets accrued into the proper period. In addition, there's balances that you calculate on financial statements, like accrued payrolls, compensated absences. So there's calculations on there, and we go through and recalculate those to make sure that they're in compliance with accounting standards. We also do analytical reviews. So we'll look at this year compared to last year, the year before, create some expectations of what we expect to happen, and then compare those to what really did happen. If there's big differences, then we start asking questions and make Kristen's life miserable by saying why this and why that and why did that happen. And so that's what we go through to make sure that those, we'll do that at the beginning of the audit. We do it as we do individual steps, and then we do it again at the audit as we're writing the statements to make sure that we've captured everything. So at the conclusion of all those tests that we do, then we have we can issue an opinion that says that your financial statements are materially correct. It's an unmodified opinion. That's the best opinion, or a clean opinion. So we feel like the financial statements reflect what actually happened within the city. As far as the internal controls, we don't give an opinion on controls, but we do evaluate those controls to make sure that they're designed and they're working. So we'll do interviews, walkthroughs, questionnaires. So we'll pull a number of invoices and say, let's walk it from where it starts to the financial statements and make sure that all those controls along the way are working. If there's a big section of the city that just don't have controls, then that's going to be considered a material weakness. If those controls had been at one time implemented, designed, working, but just aren't working as well anymore, that would be a significant deficiency. We'd definitely bring those to your attention. Through interviews, walkthroughs, questionnaires, we didn't come to find anything that we would need to bring to your attention. We feel like the controls within the city are designed and effectively working. As part of an audit, the state auditor requires us to go through certain procedures every year to evaluate compliance with state law. Some of those areas are budget controls, fraud risk assessment, government fees, some of those things. So every year we go through those procedures. And if there are findings, then we will bring those to your attention. I think there was one finding. Is that the budget? I can't remember. Fund balance.
Fund balance.
Oh, well, okay, if you're gonna have a finding, that's like the good one to have, right? Because that means you have too much money sitting in your fund balance, so.
Good catch.
Yeah. So what that means is that the state wants you to move that to a fund where you're going to spend that money over in the future years, not just park it there for a rainy day, right? And so we've gone through those procedures and feel like you guys are in compliance with state law in the procedures that we've looked at besides the fund balance overage. And then the fourth area we look at is the single audit. So you did have federal expenditures, more than $750,000. That was related to the ARPA funds, used primarily for the secondary water meter project. So we looked at those. We looked at the grants and the agencies that fund those, pulled invoices to make sure that they were meeting those criteria. It's a little bit unique because of the COVID and the way those funds came out. There was really a lot of latitude about how those monies were spent. And so that was kind of a unique challenge, trying to figure out how those monies were actually being spent within the city. So, but we did look through those and make sure that we weren't doing something that wasn't allowed. And through our procedures, we feel that we can give an opinion that those federal grants were being managed and you're in compliance with those requirements. So that's a real quick review of what we do. Those are the 4 areas that we've looked at, and we feel like we're comfortable in giving an opinion that you can rely upon those numbers. So happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart and Kristen. Council, any questions regarding the audit and the process?
I anticipated it to be pretty clean because we have great trust in Kristen and her team, so thank you.
Yep, they do a great job. We throw a lot at them and they handle it, so we're grateful for that.
And she does it with a smile.
That's right.
And she does it on a treadmill. Very inspirational. Yes. All right, thank you so much for being here this evening and for your services with that. This is a review and action, so council, this is on page 26 of our packet. If you want to, I would entertain a motion here.
I'll do that. I move.
Hang on, just one
Yes,
quick
go ahead.
question, it's probably for Kristen. You know, as our auditor at the state, they have their reviews and stuff. Do we feel like all of our procedures, we've tweaked them a little bit over the years, we feel like we're still pretty comfortable there to meet all of their requirements, I guess? I was gonna
Yep,
say
and-
requests, but I think they're
Yeah,
requirements.
and I try to keep up with them. They send out a couple auditor alerts each year of new things that they'd like to implement, and so we try and stay on top of that, but we've got help to, if I miss anything, then they're like, are you catching these? So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions or discussion? Sorry, I didn't mean to rush that along.
Well, I make a motion to approve the financial audit report for fiscal year 2023.
I'll second the motion.
All right, I have a motion by Councilmember Magalby, seconded by Councilmember Hoyt. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you so much. All right, we're going on to item number 9 on the agenda, which is an ordinance amendment to our park tax, and this is a public hearing, so.
I would make a motion to open a public hearing.
Okay,
Second.
motion by Councilmember Broderick, seconded by Councilmember Powell. All in favor?
Aye.
We are now in a public hearing, and I'll turn this over to staff to present the amendment that's being proposed here.
So with the passage of the park tax by the voters, the way the state code is set up is we are now required then to notify the state tax commission. We have a letter there that the mayor will sign tonight if you approve this, that we'll send to them. And we're just notifying them that this tax was approved by the voters and now enacted by the city council with passage of this ordinance tonight to renew the tax for another 10 years. So our final percentage of citizens that voted for this, voted a yes vote, was 76.22% of the citizens. Very high for a tax. So it's good to see that there's good support for that. So really the only changes is in that last paragraph of the ordinance that was currently in place from the last time this was approved. We're updating the dates and indicating this would be effective April 1st of 2024 and run for 10 years until March 31st, 2034. So any questions on that?
Very good. Yes, we're thrilled that this was overwhelmingly, the citizens have seen that this has been a great benefit to the community, and we'll, obviously with the new council and staff, want to be very wise stewards of this and that trust. So thank you to the citizens for that.
Again, 10 years ago, approved 2 yes votes for every 1 no vote. Now it's 3 yes votes to every 1 vote, no vote. Pretty impressive.
I'm curious what other cities have seen. It seems like
There's been a few challenges when it's first enacted, so a few cities that has failed, but
Yeah.
To my knowledge, I don't know of one that has failed when it's been renewed, up for renewal.
I
And
think my
so
question is, have we ever seen one approved with such high numbers?
I have not seen this high,
I haven't either.
So-
Not that
As
we're saying we're
I'm always keeping
competitive.
an eye on that number.
yeah.
And the videos that Adam and Carolyn were
There you
involved.
go.
Definitely the videos. That's what I was gonna say.
They were fun.
Facebook Lives.
And,
right.
and were we not the second in the county that did this type of a tax?
We were one of the first.
It was probably
Maybe.
second or third. Orem had the care tax before us.
It's the only one I
I
can
don't
think of.
know the answer to that, Randy, but it was early because
Yeah, I
several
mean,
of
we were
them
one of
have-
the, we were among the
Yeah,
first.
several have since adopted the park acronym, and so,
Yes.
yeah. We were the first to call it the park tax.
Yes,
Which is the best.
It is. So,
we did well.
All right.
better than ZAP
Yes.
or RAP, and so who wants those taxes, right?
Feels like something
Yeah.
painful.
That's
Right.
right.
Exactly.
All right, this is a public hearing, so we would invite anyone in the public if they would like to address this particular issue on the agenda. Okay, hearing none,
I would make a motion to close the public hearing.
thank you.
I'll second.
Motion by Councilmember Broderick, seconded by Councilmember Magalby to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, bringing this back to you, council. Any further discussion or question?
I would love to make a motion unless anyone has any more discussion.
Fine, I don't want to do it. Go for it.
I move to approve ordinance 2023-25-0, updating the LLC chapter of 3.05 Parks, Arts, Recreation, and Culture tax as presented.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Powell, seconded by Councilmember Broderick. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
I
that is
think I
unanimous.
said LLC instead of LCC, but I know that Kathy will get that.
Okay, noted. All right, thank you, council and staff. And then moving now to item number 10. This is also a public hearing, and this is a continued item from October 16th as a recommendation for the Planning Commission discussing the short-term rentals.
I'll make a motion to approve, open that public hearing, Mayor.
All right, motion by Councilmember Powell. Do we have a second to open a public hearing?
I'll second.
Okay, seconded by Councilmember Magalby. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Florence.
Okay,
Thank you.
At the October 16th City Council meeting, we talked about a couple different items. One was owner-occupied versus non-owner-occupied short-term rentals, and then we also talked about fire regulations. And so I've provided some information in your packet. I did quite a bit of research on what other communities have done with owner versus non-owner regulations. I didn't add anything to the ordinance for that. I wasn't sure exactly how you would like to implement anything. If you would, I thought we could discuss that, and if I needed to add something, I could. And then, but there's some different examples here. You know, for example, Ogden City, they if it's owner occupied, it can go. Short-term rental could go in any zone. If it's non-owner occupied, it can only go in a multifamily zone. That's one example. Another example was very similar, Torrey, Utah. They have a cap on the number of non-owner occupied units and no cap on owner occupied. I thought there was this one city, Gilpin, Colorado. I have no idea where that is, but they have a 3-tier system. If it's owner occupied, there's no cap. If you live in the county, you can have 2. If you don't live in the county, you can have 1. And you know that was kind of their policy that they enacted. And then another item we also discussed was charging non-owner occupied versus owner occupied differently. That's something we can look at. We're currently doing a business license fee study. That's something we can look at in the future when that study comes before the council. Any questions on that? Further discussion on owner-occupied versus non-owner occupied? Again, I did not put anything in the ordinance because I wasn't really sure the direction we wanted to go on that, but.
I don't mind if you live more local, that you might be able to be allowed to have more. Whatever we see that as, I just find that as a good thing, that being able to manage that. So that's,
And control,
yeah, thank you.
responsibility.
So, and then us defining what local would be, whether it's the county or the city, that you'd get even more. I know we are a little city, but perhaps that's even more of an enticement if you are going to be local, so.
All right, just a quick question for you. Some of the section that's there in red, that the short-term rental shall obtain a business license from Lindon City. So they will be just like a home occupancy type of a license. Is that the type of license that we'll be managing there?
They'll get a business license. It won't be a home occupation. It'll be a commercial business license.
A commercial business license,
Yes.
okay.
Is that for owner occupied or non-occupied? Am I reading
It would be
either one?
either or.
Okay.
Yes, for both. They'd need a commercial license because you're still running a commercial operation, so.
All right, and those that currently are operating then would be notified or to
Yes.
obtain that?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, I don't have addresses for them. You know, I can see them on an Airbnb website, but I don't have addresses for them. And they don't provide that as far as you can kind of zoom in and I can look at it from there.
Not that accurate either.
What's that?
It's not that
It's
accurate
not
either.
that, no.
They
And
do
so,
that for privacy reasons.
so we're gonna have to do more of a outreach effort somehow and figure that
Right.
out.
I know, I believe there's state law that you're not supposed to use that platform to seek them out, so.
Yeah.
Council, any other questions about some of these other points that could be potentially in here, you know, the owner-occupied versus non-owner occupied?
And then fire department, we're requiring a fire extinguisher on each level of the home. And then I called and talked to Washington City and talked to their fire department. They use a definition of a congregate living facility. That's how they use it under the building code. We weren't exactly sure with Bryce, our building official, how they got to that. And so the language I added on there was that they'll have a yearly fire inspection, so one when they apply for a license and then a yearly one when they renew. And then what we said was that basically they'll need to, at the time they apply for a business license, that will be reviewed by the fire marshal and building official to determine if there's any additional fire requirements that need to take place. And so instead of spelling those out, those are already in the building code. They can evaluate that as we get a floor plan in and a business license.
So question regarding the business license. Are we going to do an outreach through our social media, on our website that existing short-term rentals must, and what their consequences are outside? Is there a consequence within the ordinance outside of how we, like a nuisance or however we handle a non-business license, kind of a compliance? Because
Yeah, I believe we have a fee for an unlicensed business, you know.
but that's in our regular, that's not in this particular ordinance,
I
correct?
believe it is. I'd have to confirm that, but
I guess my concern is because of state legislation being that we can't seek them out like we would a normal business, we would have the ability to do that.
yeah.
Can we put something in the ordinance that says if within the first 6 months, I mean, whatever the time frame is, that they must come into compliance with us, then there's an extra charge or however we want to craft that? Can we do that?
We have, in our fee schedule already, we have, I think, a percentage increase if you don't.
Correct, but
with a
because
certain-
this
yeah.
particular item, being a short-term rental, that we can't go out and knock a door to then let them know, would it be needful to do something a little bit more severe on those who are already, well, I guess it wouldn't matter who, but those, because they need to seek us out. So I guess how do we find them and how do we attract them and then how do we encourage them? And then what is the penalty for them not seeking us out? I don't know. I know it's a fine line, but how do we walk it?
Yeah, so we'll use social media, we'll use the newsletter. We'll try and figure that out the best we can to get people notice, or property owners noticed on that. And then, we can just, as a policy, give people some time to get that business license, and and set a deadline for it. So I think we can work on that internally and decide when we're going to do the business license. We can prorate it, depending on when this starts for a business, because we won't start issuing a business license till we adopt a fee. And then we can also look at the fee schedule as well to make sure it has some teeth in it.
Just a comment on the state code. It actually doesn't prohibit us from using those websites to find them. Let me read what it says.
Oh, good.
A legislative body may not, two items, enact or enforce an ordinance that prohibits an individual from listing or offering a short-term rental on a short-term rental website. So I don't think we're doing that. And B, use an ordinance that prohibits the act of renting a short-term rental to fine, charge, prosecute, or otherwise punish an individual solely for the act of listing or offering on a short-term rental or short-term rental website. So I don't think we're doing either one of those. So utilizing those sites to find who is using short-term rentals, by my quick look, I think we're probably okay.
Okay.
Right, thank you
good.
for that clarification.
I
That
think
was my
the-
worry, so.
Yeah, I think we're fine too. I think the biggest issues, like Daryl brought up, sometimes they're not exact right on those properties. But if we send a notice, they tell us, it's not me, it's my neighbor, that's easy too, so.
Thank you.
All right, council, any other discussion, questions for staff regarding this matter? This is a public hearing, so I see someone ready to come forward.
Just because I'm going to have to defend this next year. We said only one short-term rental per cul-de-sac. I'm fine either way. I'm just wondering, if somebody asks me, why are we distinguishing between a cul-de-sac and just a through street, right? If somebody has 3 in a row on a regular street, that's okay. But if they try and have 3 in a cul-de-sac, that's not okay?
Yeah, so when we discussed this with the planning commission, it was, the original ordinance I brought them said that you couldn't have a short-term rental on the same side of the street along a street within 300 feet of each other. The planning commission didn't like that. They liked limiting it to just saying you can only have 1 per cul-de-sac, and the cul-de-sac only allowing 1 is because of any potential parking issues. So where you've got, 4, 5, 6 homes on a cul-de-sac, you're gonna maybe have some parking issues, and that was the complaint that kind of, brought this ordinance ahead, again, was the parking complaints that we were getting on a cul-de-sac.
So there's a lot of stuff in here. I own regular rentals. I don't have any of these kind. And this is a lot of information, and I know that some council have been against just putting a lot of legislation in there. Do we really want all of this legislation? It stipulates very carefully, very specifically, parking has to be there, right? In all the cases. Do we want to put this additional legislation of having cul-de-sac restrictions as opposed to through? Because parking can be worse, but it very clearly articulates parking has to be ample already, regardless of where it's at. It's a question. It's just a question. Property owner shall designate, this is on 5, responsible party within the business license application who is a local individual property management company within the state of Utah. Is that sufficient? Do we want to have it? I know for some of those that have these in St. George, it stipulates you have to have a property management company in St. George. We're saying here in the state, do we want to have it closer? Do we want to have it somebody within the county? I don't know. How has it been for you, Daryl? I hate to call you out, but you have one in St. George.
I didn't know that it had to be in St. George when I did it, but I'm grateful they are in St. George because there's issues that come up they have to be there pretty promptly to address and take care of. But other management companies might have people in place that are just paid based on a need rather than being an employee.
And if we finish that ordinance, it also says they have to be able to respond within 1 hour. So the reason I didn't put county is because we are within 15, 20 minutes of Salt Lake County. And so I didn't list Utah County, Salt Lake County. I just said the state, but they had to be able to respond within 1 hour. So that's why I put state instead of county.
I just wonder if we need that additional clarification in their state, and it might be okay. My own property managers are within the city of where my regular rental properties are, and I really like it. When something goes wrong, I know they've got boots on the ground. I'm not close, but they are, and it makes me feel good. So I don't know. And then use of accessory dwell units as a short-term rental shall only be allowed when the primary dwelling, when the primary dwelling is owner occupied. Is that important to us? I don't really know the pros and cons of that. And maybe the planning commission fleshed all this out and we're just approving what they say. These were just some questions and thoughts that I had. You guys are gonna make a great decision and
I think what I would imagine is part of the equation, there may be more, is an accessory dwelling under current code requires owner occupancy.
Right.
Right, so it doesn't turn into a duplex. And so I think it's kind of staying consistent with the spirit of that an accessory dwelling, you could have someone renting upstairs and now you're renting long-term, short-term, you've essentially created a
Loophole
duplex.
for
Yeah.
investors would look at. I think we'd see a lot of it where we already have a lot of
I
basement.
don't think it would be a loophole. I know it would be a
Yes,
loophole, but they would.
absolutely.
they
so
would
by
grasp on
clarifying it in here, it even further.
I think it reinforces, like the mayor
Yeah.
said, our accessory dwelling
In the
ordinances.
spirit of what that is supposed to entail.
You know, to speak to your first question, Mike, I think this is growing quickly. Remind me, you and I had talked about this a little bit from the first time period you checked it till now. Remind me those dates and those.
Two years ago, we had 7. When I brought this to the planning commission in September, we had 19. I looked right before this meeting and I counted 17.
Okay.
So,
You know, I look at this and I love that there's pros and cons. The pros, we're bringing people into our beautiful city. We're looking at potential sales tax dollars. I do think it has potential to negatively affect a cul-de-sac or an area if it were oversaturated with overnight rentals. I think about where I live. If 50% of the houses in my neighborhood decided they were overnight rentals, it would change the feel. It certainly would. And so we want to protect that a little bit, and at the same time provide for this specific type of investment and opportunity for people to enjoy our city. So I think that maybe is a little bit of my answer to your first question, is why legislate, where typically I myself agree that let's legislate the least amount possible. I think in this specific scenario, additional rules and regulations to protect neighborhoods, integrity of neighborhoods, not integrity is probably too strong of a word, but protect the feel of the neighborhoods, prevent neighbors like some we saw tonight coming in and saying, hey, it's going to completely change the field, it's going to lower my values. And so we try to protect against that as much as we possibly can. That's maybe where I'm at, why I'm in favor of the change that's been presented.
I have to, just dovetailing off of Jake, I do have an issue with the cul-de-sac, just on the fact of, is it a long cul-de-sac? Now, Jake and I live on little cul-de-sacs, not very many neighbors. So yes, it would really change the atmosphere in our cul-de-sacs. But maybe somebody it's as long as a cul-de-sac is legally to be, is somebody at the front going to prohibit somebody at the back in the bulb from being able to have one? So I guess that's my only concern, is perhaps the length of the cul-de-sac, of the street for the cul-de-sac, but, because we're not talking just the bulb.
we are talking
Oh,
just
we
the
are?
bulb.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
then I'll just be quiet so we can
Yeah.
go home.
Yeah, I think I defined that as, the cul-de-sac shall be determined as the bulb area of the dead-end turnaround, which begins at the return radius, so where it
Okay.
comes in. and
Good, yes,
goes around.
then I agree with Jake. And but where I see that we need to allow for the free enterprise of things, but for my main concern is making sure the flavor and the atmosphere of Lindon is protected, and doing so, I think this is a good way to do that.
No, this brings up another interesting point. So I've been talking with some of the legislators that are, the topic at the state level constantly is home affordability, moderate income availability, and really something that's starting to happen, has been happening, and is a concern, is that available inventory for people to purchase homes often is being purchased by institutional organizations.
At an all-time high in history.
And it's interesting that you noted that some jurisdictions are actually delineating, you know, if you live there, if you're, you know, a local person versus institutional, they're trying to create a barrier from institutional to scoop up the inventory and create a scarcity. And I think that is leading to some of the problems with affordability in our state right now. So I thought that was some interesting language there. I didn't see it necessarily being proposed here, but
Yeah, I wasn't sure the direction on that. And I only saw it in one city code that I could find.
That's the one in Colorado.
To clarify for anyone listening, I'm not saying like, you know, if someone here in this room has an Airbnb, that's not an institutional. It's, you know, it's the large corporate entities, the hedge funds that come in and
The
they
mega
will buy a
companies.
swath or they're on the move, you know, to take up that inventory. So I think with Lindon, I know there's a lot of people that often say they really want to move to our community. And maybe we do want to start putting some loose, you know, kind of guides around making sure that we don't have a lot of inventory turn into Airbnbs with, you know, maybe the temples here, and now suddenly people see a market, a greater market for that. I think the council has taken a very hands-off approach. We looked at this, you know, several years back and determined, okay, there's only a few, we're going to let it kind of do its thing. Deal with it on a complaint basis, where other cities have been locking in, you know, ordinances around it long before we have. So I think council is taking this at a pace that warrants, you know, the growth of what's happening, and we do need to kind of think forward of how we want to make sure it's managed in a smart way.
I think it's great, Mike. Thank you for putting it together. Thanks for answering my questions. We'll be up there next time, and it's good to have your comments so that we can answer those well. And Randy, I tried to catch your attention. I put my head down in that
you
last
did.
one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The mayor saw me,
Okay.
but I was
Congratulations
looking
on
at you, hoping you could see.
utilizing your pillow tie, which Mike does not know.
Thank you.
That was what's in your
Yeah.
bag.
Was it during the accountant talking?
Sunshine yellow, because you're so happy all the time.
Going to Lincoln's point on number 5, we could just say the property owner shall designate a responsible party within the business, with the business license application who is a local individual or property management company. We could just stop it there and then say, you know, they've got to respond, be able to respond by, you know, or be available 24 hours a day or respond within 1 hour.
I really like the 1 hour part.
I like the 1 hour.
If we want to take out within the state of Utah, we can take that out.
Within 1 hour, you could just even say, instead of within the state of Utah, within 1 hour.
Yeah,
Do we
that's
say
in
somebody
there.
On site?
What's that?
Do we say somebody on site?
Yeah, they have to be able to respond within 1 hour.
But respond
The
how? Are they going to
location.
respond with a phone call or respond on site? I think, is that what you're saying?
It says, must be available to respond to the property within 1 hour of receipt of a complaint from Lindon City.
That's great.
So we can strike within the state of Utah, we can strike that out, the sentence, that ordinance still works. If you'd like to do that.
I think it needs a slight tweak of clarification, because you could say respond to, how do you respond to? Is it-
Exactly.
Well, it says respond to the property, or,
So you have
They
to
could
be,
text, phone call, email. We're trying to clarify.
A little bit more.
We need to have
Yes.
something a little stronger.
okay, that's easy.
I mean, you could even say property management company within a 1 hour radius of the property.
But we
versus
want them
state of Utah.
to be able to respond on site, to walk onto the property and
Yeah, I like
And
that, to respond
fix
on site.
fix a problem.
We put that in our text. Do we enforce it? How do we enforce it? Is it?
It's when Lindon City has a complaint that they need followed up, so at that point, staff would
Department
be
gets a
interacting, police
complaint.
department.
They tell me that, hey, took someone 4 hours to get here, you know, that's a good way to put them on notice about their business license. So, I also liked the idea that was brought up last time about reviewing this periodically, bring it back once a
Yes.
year and look at it. So if you wanted to keep it how it is and review the owner versus non-owner occupied in a year, we can do that, or if you want to address something with that this evening.
I'm good with that.
I would say we'd look at those other things in a year, but I really liked what Gilpin's doing.
Yep.
If that's how you say it correctly.
Yeah.
I do too.
I can research that some more and bring it back next year at this time.
So just one more comment, sorry. On a rental property, I had a fridge go out on a Saturday, right? And my property manager said, we don't, unless it's fire or flood, we don't respond until Monday. Does this terminology,
It's 24/7.
right, does this terminology, if somebody says my fridge isn't working, require somebody to come within an hour, even in a case where it's not really an emergency? Does that make sense?
I think what we're talking about is two different lines of communication. So if the occupant has an issue with their rental and they're contacting the owner, that's one line of communication. They could say, oh, we don't have enough towels or fridge or whatever. We're not managing that. It's when there's been an infraction, there's a noise nuisance, there's a code infraction and a complaint comes to the city that needs to be addressed because it's affecting the the neighborhood, the neighbors.
Then the city knows that they have a contact that can be boots on the ground in an hour.
Yep.
And our police department has access to our civic review software, so they can go in, they can see who the responsible party is. And
Council, anything else that any other thoughts? Again, in,
Still a public hearing.
Yes. I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
all right, we have a motion by Councilmember Magalby, seconded by Councilmember Powell. All in favor to close the public hearing?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
one thing I also want to bring up is, I was on a, Zoom call or something like, or webinar the other day, and no, I was at an APA meeting on Friday, and they were talking about legislative items for next year, and one of those items was short-term rentals, but they didn't say, they didn't go into any detail. So it might be that we're amending this again next June, or May or June, to change something in this
sure we
code
will.
anyways, and so.
Why we need to do it every year, because legislation's going to make some tweaks.
So in
or
6
more.
months, we may be bringing this back to you anyway, so.
So would we rather council approve it as is and let it be tweaked along the way? Or do we want to continue to refine, right? That's the question.
But I would be in favor of approving it as we've written it, and we'll continue to tweak and adjust as needed.
Agree.
Department
I
ordinance,
said
I
you
bring
make that
that back to you every year.
Yes.
Because it evolves.
Exactly.
Who the heck knows
if-
that somebody's gonna come in and buy 20 homes and start.
Are we ready to make a motion then?
With the glasses. I move to approve ordinance 2023-17-0 as presented.
We want
It's that, with
With
the
that
changes
little
to,
tweak in
Yes.
that verbiage on the 1 hour response
Yep.
area.
All right. Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Broderick, seconded by Councilmember Hoyt. Any further discussion? Okay, we'll bring it to our final vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll
Okay.
second.
Yay.
Okay. All in favor to adjourn? Any
Aye.
opposed? We're not going to let you go. No, we're all, sorry, I didn't state it like I usually do. I rushed.
Thank you, Daryl. Just for you guys. Thanks, Daryl.
Okay, I've got another one of those at home. I get two. I guess Randy has two too.
You can come back and get another one.
This one is a cook-on, so fast release from me.
Put them on my desk.
No, I'm not concerned about defending it, it's more answering to it, right? I've heard from them, the planning commission has talked about it. No, why did you cancel it?
I should have said 6.
Oh, hey, guys.
Most legislative things,
Oh, goodness gracious.
council, we can't change is like development agreement.
There is one extra.
This one, those were kind of stuff. This one, this is a great swag, right? It's the first time. It's gonna-
Temptation. This time of year is terrible. Do you need me to sign anything tonight? Yes, I'm sorry.
You did a good job. I was trying to do a good job. I stole, I made it, yeah, this is kind of like, great.
I mean, some of it is a buyer beware thing, you hear that in real estate all the time, I just kinda like, do you have people call and say, am I in a flood zone, do I have any issues with my property?
And you did, I had just found those ones there, right next to it, and you pointed
You
it
guys
out.
need a plate or something.
Yeah, that's it.
I understand their concern, what I think we could do is when that road does go in, and then
Just leave it alone.
request a fence or.
Somebody said that.
All that stuff from PG.
Well, that would be a talk to the people and see what he gets.
As I was sitting here, for 2 years I've been listening to you guys. How do they handle the responsibility? How do they validate? You gotta get better at that. I've been trying to get better at that. I was imagining comments that I would say, and then you guys come out and say, dang, I still have so hard to do. So well validating and really listening to things, listening to them. You guys,
You got the beat, Jacob.
I just admire you all.
To be honest,
Thank you for this beautiful
there's some residents on that street that told me they did know.
But again, for the history
Supposed to go through and.
of beet farms and.
It's not gonna be what they think.
Well, and this is my neighborhood, these are my
I was gonna say, is
neighbors.
this your ward or is it outside?
No longer my ward, we're within 1 block, but
Yeah, it'll get torn down.
to be honest, the one gal that read the letter, she's a cranky. They're describing their street as a pipe dream.
That's what I kept telling them.
It's not. She's torn into me about various issues, and they're just a little crazy. I mean, not to say that we don't still acknowledge and try to do what we can where we're, I don't feel that way with people. But,
Well, I know I'll still see you.
anyway, I don't know if there'll be a full way to.
Appreciate you. It was fun golfing with you the other day.
Oh, yeah.
Good to get together.
Big lots, big lots. The front, yeah, right now their front is their street to get, go to PG or 600, either or. And of course, there's a collector behind them. Thank you. They'll see a decrease in that is what I suspect. Maybe, that might be.
They've created a narrative to try and justify their
I
complaints
hope,
and try
that's
to.
my worry. I might come sit back sometime. Say hi. We're lucky to have you. We may.
And I would just
like you can stop by your class and take a class. I feel like that age sometimes.
Always feel like you can start with me, so you don't have to figure out. Okay, so start with me, and if I can't answer your question, it's okay.
See you guys.
You were Mike before.
Yeah.
So you've been here,
He's got all
you've been doing the street planning for since 2005.
It's tricky. It's always hard when development triggers growth. It changes people's peace and quiet.
How long has she lived there, do you know?
The Warners are fairly new. They've only lived here 5 years.
Okay, because I was gonna say, I mean, that segment that was to the west just got built. We noticed that whole street.
Yes, I know, I'll see
Just
it.
woke up and there was this other guy.
Yeah, the folks.
They've been here
They're
in meetings,
longtime
and that's where I said I strongly disagree. You guys haven't been informed about this,
They're
because I
longtime
recognize that
residents.
from being here. They've come into meetings, so that's where she's newer.
To Bill, lady.
So, is it inappropriate for you to say some of your
I hope
neighbors?
so.
Gonna say goodbye.
I know that.
Depends on how much you're gonna have to take.
No, right?
Lyndon, really blessed to have you. I mean that truly.
I think the reality.
Yes, I'm glad we got to serve together.
It's just like.
So grateful for putting your hat in the ring, even way back in the day with Caroline. So that's what started it all. So,
Change is hard. I told one of the neighbors on that street, she says, I knew this was happening.
good luck with everything. You're gonna be wonderful. No, thank you. And I told you that Vita is just a huge fan, and I get to pick her up every Thursday for that class. So she's a sweetheart.
Thank you very much. This is awesome.
I know, and like I said, they are rare, hard to get in. So I had to have my son pull out like his last toe. So
It's awesome. Have a Merry Christmas,
it's not a
everyone.
bad clip-on. See, yours has a tie on, his is a clip-on.
Like a hidden superpower.
Were you gonna take a picture when
I was thinking of taking a picture, then I was like, that's not very dignified.
And so I went back down, so you take a picture, and then I thought,